各位好，欢迎收看本期的天天话题之财经专栏。在今天的节目当中呢，我们为您邀请到的是洛杉矶县的警察局局长 Alex Villanueva. Sheriff, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Now, as we bring attention to the recent violence against the AAPI community, I know just a few months ago, you held a press conference in front of the Hall of Justice to announce your support for the Asian community. Now, moving forward, what would the sheriff department do to tackle the Asian bias crimes?
Well, we've been doing quite a lot. We had 3 different incidents. In fact, a few months back when we had an incident in Hacienda Heights, Diamond Bar, and South El Monte, where all 3 cases, they were hate crimes, not hate incidents. We identified the suspect. We made the arrests, so we are holding people accountable. And then we had a recent case now in Cerritos, at a park in Cerritos, where a person was assaulted and it was a hate crime. And that one, we're still trying to identify the suspect. So we're asking for the public's help, but we're definitely our hate crimes task force is working very, very closely with the API community, with our federal counterparts at the FBI. And we take this very, very seriously and just want to keep that message that you're not alone. We're going to be with you shoulder to shoulder.
Now, what would you recommend people do when they encounter anti-Asian crimes? How should they stand up for themselves?
One thing is, even if it's a hate incident, it doesn't rise to the level of the crime, please report it. Because when you report hate incidents, some of those people end up being the suspects in hate crimes later on. It's the very same people. So gotta definitely report it so we can identify who the players are and understand the context and whether it rises to the level of a hate crime or not. So definitely communication is very, very important.
I know earlier you mentioned there was locally a hate incident happened in Diamond Bar during a rally against anti-Asian hate.
Yes.
DA ended up, don't want to prosecute the case. What happened there?
Well, we referred to our federal authorities, the FBI. They have a civil rights division. Well, they'll take a look at it, and then they decide if they can move forward with a civil rights violation. Mm-hmm. And we're, I think, waiting on word on that.
I know if it doesn't rise to a criminal level, many times people don't really report those hate incidents, especially the Asian community, like you mentioned. Why is it still important for people to report those incidents? Why, is it still important to, see something, say something?
Well, someone who's going to act out based on a motivation of hatred towards, for example, a racial group, a API community, that type of person is going to commit a hate crime at some point. So when you report the incidents, it allows us to connect all the dots, and we can see not only who the person is a suspect, but we might identify other victims as well. And that gives us more leeway when it comes to holding them accountable and pressing charges against them. So it's very, very important to report incidents as well.
Thank you, Sheriff. Let's take a break and we'll be right back. 那我们先休息下这段广告，广告过后呢，我们再来继续今天的天天话题，不要离开。感谢回来，在今天的节目当中呢，我们为您邀请到的是洛杉矶县警察局的局长 Alex Villanueva. Sheriff, we spoke about anti-Asian crimes. What are your current top priorities right now as the LA County top cop?
Well, we have 3 big priorities. We have homelessness situation that has spiraled out of control now. It's engulfing entire communities. That is a huge priority. Violent crime, the number and the rate of violent crime increasing is very, very large. In fact, right now, I have a 68% increase in homicides, and I have an 11% increase in aggravated assaults. And then if you look at weapons crimes, assaults with firearms and unlawful shootings, aggravated assault with a firearm is up 61%. Unlawful shootings are up 59%. So a total of 59% increase in crimes involving firearms. These are major, major problems for the entire community. It's a threat to peaceful people everywhere throughout the county. So those 2 are big ones. The third one that's equally challenging is illegal cannabis grows in the high desert and illegal cannabis dispensaries in the Southland that is really overwhelming entire communities their presence and the negative impact they have on everyone's freedom of moving around.
You know, I'm really happy that you brought up the homeless crisis. I know recently you asked the LA County Supervisor to, declare a state of emergency regarding the homeless crisis. So what do you think? Can you share a little bit about that? And what do you think, what's the role the Sheriff Department plays here?
Well, as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer for the county, I have an obligation to protect the public peace, disrupt or stop any type of riots or breaches of the peace, and arrest and take before magistrate any delinquencies. So it gives me a wide latitude to enforce the law throughout the county, and not just the areas that we traditionally police, like the unincorporated communities or the 42 contract cities, but this responsibility covers the entire county. We rely on our independent police departments to do their job. However, if the politicians are going to handcuff the local police and tell them not to enforce the law, it's going to fall on our shoulders and make sure the law is enforced and people remain safe. And the response I got from the Board of Supervisors was astonishing. They said there's no crisis, that they have a robust plan to provide housing for the less fortunate, and so there is no crisis. So what are you talking about? So we got a serious problem here with what's going on with the Board of Supervisors.
Now, regarding what happened at the Venice Beach, can you share a little bit about what happened and what do you think the city and county should do to tackle this issue?
Well, one, the city and county need to recognize that we're at a crisis level right now. They've allowed the problem to grow unchecked. They failed to regulate public space. So now these encampments have grown to the point that they're overtaking entire communities and they're dragging down the economy of the local areas. Venice Boardwalk is one prime example. Another one is Hollywood. And the other one is a civic center in Olvera Street. Those three areas alone have been just totally overtaken by the homeless, to the point that tourists are no longer going there. The residents feel threatened just by stepping outside their home. And even inside their home, sometimes with all the fires that are being lit, they're in danger. The same thing with our residents in Pacific Palisades, Topanga Canyon. You have encampments at the base of the foothills that threatens everyone's safety because of the high fire danger areas that are there. So we have a lot of very, very serious problems, but we have a Board of Supervisors and the mayor who just shrugged their shoulders and say, there's nothing we can do because we have to be compassionate to the homeless, while the entire community is being negatively impacted.
I also want to talk about Proposition 47. I think a lot of people really care about this proposition because it really reclassifies certain theft and drug possession offenses from felonies to misdemeanors. There are obviously criminals who are taking advantage of the system. Can you talk about the challenges to implement laws like this?
Well, the sad thing with laws like that, what happens is that you're eliminating the consequences for engaging in crime. For like Prop 47, it declassified grand theft from $400. Now you can steal up to $950 and it's still petty theft. And then entering a store with intent to commit theft was originally classified as a burglary, a felony. Now it's classified as a misdemeanor. So now you have criminals who will walk into a CVS pharmacy or a supermarket, they'll load up a bag with just not short of $950 and they'll walk right out, sometimes on bicycle, and no one will stop them. So in the San Francisco Bay Area alone, I believe 17 CVS pharmacies have closed down because they can't sustain the losses. There's no accountability. And you marry that with district attorneys who say, we're not going to prosecute misdemeanor crimes. You've created a lawless society now, where basically might makes right. If you have the strength to steal it, it's yours and no one can do anything about it. That is not a civil society that I'm gonna tolerate. That is not what Californians expect or Angelenos. So we have to push back hard against this nonsense.
Thank you, Sheriff. We definitely covered a lot of complex issues today. I know you're super busy and we definitely don't want to take up too much of your time. Thank you for your time and thank you for joining us today.
Oh, you got it. Thank you.
Thank you. 同时也非常感谢各位的收看，我们下期同一时间再见。
您正在收看的是凤凰卫视。